The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chamber gleamed under the light of three suns. Ambassador James Miller adjusted his plain black suit, a stark contrast to the elaborate biomechanical robes and light-based clothing worn by other species representatives. The council session had been going for 6 hours. Miller sat quietly, watching the familiar scene unfold. The blue-skinned bright ones were arguing with the crystalline luminaries about trade routes, while the gaseous forms drifted around, changing colors to show their irritation. The human solution to the Centauri Belt crisis was primitive at best, announced Representative Light, his body pulsing with what Miller recognized as smugness. Using physical barriers to separate the mining zones when we could have implemented quantum-locked boundaries. Miller rubbed his temples. This was the 10th time this week that a human solution had been criticized for being too simple. The fact that the physical barriers had worked perfectly for 3 years, while every quantum-locked boundary had failed within months, seemed to escape them. "And let us discuss their handling of the third ring dispute," chimed in Representative Stone, his rocky surface gleaming. They suggested talking to both sides and finding common ground, as if diplomatic issues could be solved by simply talking. A few representatives let out sounds that passed for laughter in their species. Miller looked down at his datapad, where a message from Earth Command blinked, "Proceed as discussed." He stood up slowly. 20 years of human participation in galactic politics had led to this moment. The chamber's automatic translation system hummed to life as he cleared his throat. "Honored representatives," Miller began, his voice steady. "For 2 decades, humanity has been part of this council. In that time, we've helped solve 847 major disputes, prevented 23 wars, and established 156 lasting trade agreements." The chamber grew quiet. Even the forms stopped their constant movement. "Our solutions have been called primitive, simple, and backwards. Yet they work. Our physical barriers in the Centauri Belt are still standing. Our suggestion to actually talk to the ring species led to their most profitable trade year. Our primitive currency exchange system has prevented 3 economic collapses." Representative Light's glow dimmed slightly. Representative Stone's surface stopped its usual shifting. "But today, Earth has made a decision." Miller paused, looking around the chamber. "Humanity is withdrawing from all galactic political affairs." The translation system struggled to keep up with the sudden burst of reactions. Some representatives began glowing in alarm. Others started vibrating at frequencies that made the chamber's walls shake. "This is outrageous." Representative Light flared so brightly that the chamber's auto-dimming systems activated. "You cannot simply leave." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Actually, we can. As of this moment, all human diplomatic missions are being recalled. Our mediators are returning home. Our trade delegations are packing up. We will maintain basic communications for emergencies, but humanity is stepping back from galactic politics." But what about the Sector 7 negotiations next week?" Representative Stone rumbled. "You were supposed to lead those talks." "I'm sure you'll find a more advanced solution than our primitive methods," Miller replied calmly. "After all, humanity's ways are so very simple and backwards." Standing straight, Miller gathered his few belongings. The chamber had fallen into shocked silence. Even the forms had settled into a uniform gray color of disbelief. "It has been an interesting 20 years, Miller said, walking toward the exit. "Perhaps someday you'll understand that sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Until then, goodbye." As the doors slid shut behind him, chaos erupted in the chamber. Miller walked down the curved corridor toward his ship, where his staff was already waiting. He didn't need the translation system to understand the panic growing behind him. In his earpiece, Earth Command's message was brief. "Well done. Come home." Looking out at the glittering expanse of the galactic capital one last time, Miller knew this was just the beginning. Sometimes the best lessons were learned the hard way, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans' simple solutions had been holding everything together all along. The following week became known as the Great Withdrawal across the galaxy. Human ships, large and small, methodically departed from thousands of worlds. Tom Parker, head of the Human Relocation Committee, watched from his temporary office on New Mars as another fleet of transport vessels entered Sol space. Status report. He called out to his team, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing hundreds of blinking lights, each representing a human operation being dismantled across the galaxy. 97% of diplomatic personnel have returned, reported his assistant. Business withdrawal at 83%. The alien markets are already showing signs of instability. Parker nodded, remembering how just yesterday the Bright Ones had offered to triple their trade agreements if humans would reconsider. They had politely declined. In the observation deck of Titan Station, Linda Roberts, chief of interstellar commerce, was handling the biggest logistical challenge in human history. Moving entire colonial operations back to Sol system wasn't simple, but humans had always been good at the impossible. Another call from the trading consortium, her AI assistant announced. They're offering exclusive mining rights in the Golden Belt. Decline, Linda said firmly, watching as another convoy of ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They still think this is a negotiating tactic. The alien races couldn't seem to understand that humans were serious. Their arrogance had convinced them that humanity was merely throwing a tantrum, that they would come crawling back once they realized how much they needed galactic society. On Earth, in the underground bunker of the Global Command Center, Admiral Wilson reviewed the security feeds. Alien ships had been gathering at the edges of human space, not in threatening numbers, but enough to show their concern. They're finally starting to worry, he muttered, watching the alien vessels hover uncertainly. The humans had been careful to leave no strategic weaknesses as they pulled back. Every human world was now protected by their newest defense systems, systems the aliens had dismissed as crude, but had never managed to penetrate. In the Centauri trading hub, the last human shop owner, Bill Thompson, was closing his Simple Solutions store. The irony of the name wasn't lost on him as a crowd of alien customers made last-minute purchases. His primitive repair tools had somehow always fixed problems that alien technology couldn't solve. "But who will fix our atmospheric processors?" asked a desperate luminary customer, its crystal body flickering in distress. "I'm sure you'll figure out something more advanced than a wrench and some good old-fashioned know-how," Bill replied, packing up his tools. The withdrawal wasn't just about politics and business. Human entertainment had become surprisingly popular across the galaxy, despite being called simplistic by critics. Now, alien entertainment venues were in panic as they lost access to human music, movies, and games. On the galactic capital world, the last human restaurant was closing. Its owner, Mary White, had served basic human food that had become secretly addictive to many alien species. As she shut down her grills one last time, a line of alien customers stretched for blocks, hoping for one last taste of what they had publicly dismissed as primitive protein arrangements. By the end of the week, the withdrawal was nearly complete. The only humans left in galactic space were emergency communication officers at designated outposts. The aliens had moved from dismissal to disbelief, then to concern, and now to the beginnings of panic. In his office on Earth, Tom Parker received the final confirmation. Withdrawal completion at 99.9%. All essential personnel and assets secured in Sol space. He looked at the message for a long moment before sending out the final notice to all human forces. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Observation. As the message went out, Parker smiled slightly. The aliens had never understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their resources. It was their ability to work together, to find practical solutions, and to get things done without overthinking them. Now they would learn, the hard way, just how much they had relied on those simple human solutions. 3 months after the human withdrawal, the Galactic Council's emergency session stretched into its 4th straight day. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of unity and progress, now echoed with angry accusations and desperate pleas. Robert Adams, monitoring the situation from Earth's Deep Space Observatory, watched the chaos unfold through the long-range feeds. The translation software struggled to keep up with the overlapping shouts and threats. Another trade route dispute in the Orion Arm, his system reported. Third one this week. The Bright Ones and Luminaries are threatening military action. The same trade route that a single human mediator had kept peaceful for 15 years was now on the brink of war. Adams marked it on his map, adding to the growing collection of red dots indicating critical situations across the galaxy. In what used to be human-operated Mining Station 47, the advanced quantum-based sorting systems had failed again. The luminaries had replaced the primitive human conveyor belts and physical sorting methods with their own technology. Now, 3 weeks of mineral extraction was floating freely in space, mixed and worthless. How did the humans keep these machines running? Demanded the station overseer, his crystalline form flickering with frustration. Nobody mentioned that the humans had simply used mechanical sorters and regular maintenance checks, solutions too basic to be considered by advanced races. The forms, once proud of their complex energy trading algorithms, were facing an economic crisis. Their system, which they had claimed was far superior to the simple supply and demand methods used by humans, had created a cascade of market crashes across 3 sectors. In the Centauri Belt, where physical barriers had been replaced with quantum fields, 2 mining ships had collided. The quantum boundaries, which were supposed to be far more elegant than metal and stone, had failed during a solar flare, something the human barriers had weathered for years without issue. On Earth, Mary Thompson, head of the Galactic Monitoring Division, reviewed the latest reports. "They've tried to replicate our mediation protocols," she noted, reading from her screen. "But they're making it too complicated. They're trying to solve everything with technology and theoretical models." The aliens had never understood that human mediators succeeded because they listened, understood basic emotions, and found practical compromises. No amount of advanced psychology algorithms could replace simple empathy and common sense. In the former human colony of New Eden, now abandoned and quiet, a group of alien archaeologists studied the primitive farming methods humans had used. Their own hydroponic systems, supposedly far more advanced, were failing to produce enough food for their growing populations. "These humans," muttered the lead researcher, examining a simple irrigation system, "they used water and soil, just water and soil, and yet their crop yields were 3 times what we're achieving." The Galactic Banking Consortium was in crisis. The complex financial instruments that had replaced human-style trading were collapsing. Nobody had realized that human markets, with their outdated concepts of supply and demand, had been the stabilizing force in the galactic economy. Back in the council chamber, Representative Lake's glow had dimmed to a worried flicker. "Perhaps," he suggested carefully, "we should consider sending a delegation to Earth." Representative Stone, who had once mocked human diplomacy, rumbled in agreement. Their solutions were effective, even if we didn't understand why. But pride still held them back. Surely, they told themselves, they could solve these problems with their advanced technology and superior intelligence. They just needed more time. In his observatory, Adams watched another red dot appear on his map. A simple trade dispute that any human mediator could have solved over coffee was now threatening to escalate into armed conflict. "Send today's report to command," he instructed his system. "Note that Phase 3 might need to begin earlier than planned." As he looked at the spreading chaos, Adams couldn't help but feel a touch of sadness. The humans hadn't wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson this way, but sometimes the only way to appreciate simple solutions was to watch complex ones fail spectacularly. And fail they did, one by one, like dominoes falling across the stars. 6 months into the human withdrawal, Admiral Wilson stood in Earth's Central Command, watching the galaxy tear itself apart. The massive display screen showed dozens of conflict zones, economic collapse indicators, and failed diplomatic missions. "The Bright Ones and Luminaries have started shooting at each other over the Centauri trade routes," reported his officer. Their advanced weapon systems are causing more damage than they expected. Neither side knows how to scale back without losing face. Wilson remembered how human peacekeepers used to handle such conflicts, usually with a shared meal and straight talk about consequences. Now, the aliens were trapped in their own web of complex protocols and honor systems. In the former human trade hub of Station Beta, the local market had completely collapsed. The advanced AI trading systems, meant to replace human traders, had created a feedback loop that crashed the entire sector's economy. No one remembered how human merchants had maintained stable prices through simple supply and demand principles. Another distress call from the Outer Rim, announced the emergency communications officer. The form's atmospheric processors are failing across 3 colonies. They're requesting any information about human maintenance procedures. The forms had replaced all outdated human equipment with their own advanced technology. Now their people were struggling to breathe because no one knew how to fix systems that were too complex to maintain. On Mars Base 1, Dr. Helen Anderson reviewed the latest reports from her xenobiology team. "They're starting to eat each other," she said grimly, watching footage from a former human-managed food distribution center. The aliens' automated systems had failed to account for simple factors like spoilage and transport delays. The Galactic Council, once proud and orderly, had devolved into chaos. Species that hadn't fought in millennia were now at each other's throats. The complex peace treaties, written without human mediators, were full of loopholes and contradictions. "The luminaries have lost their 3rd fleet this week," reported a monitoring station. "They tried to use quantum tunneling for transport instead of regular space lanes. No survivors." The humans had always used traditional space lanes, marked with simple beacons and following natural routes. The aliens had called it primitive, until their ships started disappearing into quantum space. In what used to be a human mining colony, a group of alien workers stared at a broken drill. Their advanced mining lasers had overheated and failed. Nobody knew how to operate the primitive mechanical drills the humans had left behind. Back on Earth, Tom Parker met with the Global Response Team. "They're starting to crack," he noted, reviewing the latest intelligence. 3 different species have attempted to reach our borders in the last week alone." The aliens had finally realized that their advanced civilization had been standing on a foundation of human practicality. Without it, their complex systems were collapsing one by one. In orbit around Jupiter, Linda Roberts watched as another alien ship approached the solar system's border. This one carried representatives from the trading consortium, once the proudest critics of human economic methods. "They're broadcasting a message," her AI reported. "They're offering to accept all human terms if we'll just teach them how to maintain basic infrastructure." The galactic economy was in free fall. The advanced financial algorithms had created a crisis that would have made the Great Depression look like a minor setback. Meanwhile, human space was prospering, running on what the aliens had called prehistoric economic principles. "Sir," called out Wilson's communications officer, "we're getting reports of riots in the Central Worlds. Their food synthesis systems have completely failed." Wilson nodded grimly. The aliens had forgotten that sometimes growing food in dirt was more reliable than manufacturing it with quantum technology. The cascade of failures was accelerating. Each complex system the aliens had built to replace human methods was crashing, taking others down with it. Their civilization, built on theoretical perfection rather than practical reliability, was showing fatal cracks. "Begin preparation for Phase 5, Wilson ordered. "They'll be ready to talk soon. Really talk this time, not just lecture." The galaxy was learning the hard way that sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution, and humans had always been masters of keeping things simple. 8 months after the human withdrawal, Dr. Mark Anderson stood before the Global Council on Earth, presenting his analysis of the galactic situation. The room was silent as holographic images showed the spreading chaos across star systems. "It wasn't our technology that made us special," he explained, pointing to a chart. "It was our adaptability. our tendency to find workable solutions instead of perfect ones. The display showed clips from various alien worlds. A group of luminaries struggled to operate a simple mechanical pump, technology they had once laughed at. Their own water purification systems, based on quantum manipulation, had failed catastrophically. "Look at the bright ones," Anderson continued, switching the display. "Their automated diplomatic systems have created 3 wars this week. They still don't understand why our human mediators were so effective." In the diplomatic archives, researchers had finally cracked the pattern. Human mediators had succeeded because they understood something fundamental: the importance of imperfect but practical solutions. While aliens sought theoretical perfection, humans sought actual results. On Station Alpha, the last remaining trade hub, alien merchants were desperately studying recovered human trading logs. They had discovered something shocking. Humans hadn't used complex algorithms to set prices. They had simply talked to each other, understood needs, and agreed on fair values. Their entire society, Anderson highlighted, was built on theoretical perfection. Ours was built on practical solutions. That's why everything is falling apart without us. The evidence was overwhelming. Every sector where humans had operated was now in crisis. The aliens had replaced simple, working systems with complex ones that failed under real-world conditions. In deep space, a luminary science vessel made another startling discovery. They had finally analyzed why human ships had better survival rates despite their primitive technology. Human vessels had redundant systems, manual overrides, and parts that could be repaired with basic tools. "Sir," an aide interrupted Anderson's presentation, "the forms have just released their analysis of human diplomatic methods. They're calling it the simplicity paradigm." The forms had discovered that human diplomatic success wasn't based on advanced psychology or complex negotiation algorithms. It was based on understanding basic needs, finding common ground, and suggesting practical compromises. On Mars base, Linda Roberts reviewed the latest economic data. The galactic markets had lost 70% of their value since the human withdrawal. Meanwhile, the human economy, running on primitive principles of actual supply and demand, was thriving. "They're finally getting it," she noted, watching alien traders desperately trying to implement human trading methods. "Sometimes you just need to trade what people actually want for prices they can actually pay." The bright ones made the next breakthrough. Their scientists discovered that human primitive technology had an unexpected advantage: it could be fixed. Their own advanced systems, when they failed, had to be completely replaced. "Humans," announced Representative Light in an emergency council session, "understood something we forgot. The goal isn't to have the most advanced solution. The goal is to have a solution that works." In Earth's monitoring station, Tom Parker watched the aliens struggle with this revelation. Their entire civilization had been built on the pursuit of theoretical perfection. The idea that practical solutions might be better was shaking their worldview to its core. "They called us primitive because we used physical tools," he noted. "Now they're learning that you can't eat theoretical food or breathe quantum air." The final piece fell into place when the forms discovered the true genius of human adaptability. While alien species specialized and optimized, humans remained generalists. They could work with any system, adapt to any situation, and find solutions using whatever was available. "Begin preparations for Phase 6, Anderson concluded his presentation. "They're ready to understand now. Ready to learn why humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology or our intelligence." He paused, looking at the chaos displayed across the galaxy. "It was our ability to see that good enough is sometimes better than perfect." The galaxy was learning, painfully but thoroughly, that theoretical perfection meant nothing without practical application. And humans had always been masters of making things work, one simple solution at a time. The most powerful gathering of alien species in galactic history arrived at Earth's orbit 1 standard year after the human withdrawal. The massive ships hung in space like glittering jewels, a stark contrast to the simple, functional human defense platforms surrounding them. Admiral Wilson stood in Earth's primary diplomatic center, watching as the alien representatives materialized in the designated arrival zones. No quantum tunnels or advanced transportation methods. They had used standard teleporters, just as humans had always recommended. Representatives from 37 major species, his aide reported, including the bright ones, luminaries, and forms, all here to apologize. The Grand Hall, deliberately designed with simple wood panels and basic comfort features, filled with beings who once scorned such primitive aesthetics. Now they sat quietly, humbled by a year of cascading failures. Humanity, began Representative Light, his glow carefully dimmed to show respect. We were wrong. Catastrophically wrong. The forms shifted into their most formal pattern, one they had learned from human diplomatic archives. Our civilizations are failing. We need your help, not your technology, not your resources, but your wisdom. On screens around the room, images showed the galaxy's current state, trade routes in chaos, advanced systems failing, and populations struggling with basic needs, all because they had replaced working human solutions with theoretical improvements. We offer complete autonomy, Representative Stone rumbled. Full recognition of human methodologies. Whatever you require, just teach us how you did it. Tom Parker, now Earth's chief negotiator, stood up. The aliens tensed, expecting complex demands or requirements. Instead, he walked to a simple wooden table in the center of the room. Let's start, he said, pulling out a chair, by just talking. Like humans do. The aliens looked confused. They had brought quantum computers for negotiations, prepared complex algorithms for diplomatic procedures. Instead, they were being invited to sit and talk. But where are the negotiation protocols? Asked a luminary. The algorithmic fairness calculators. Parker smiled. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to just discuss it honestly. Would anyone like some coffee? In orbit, Linda Roberts watched the proceedings with her team. The aliens were learning their first lesson, that human diplomatic success came from simple human interaction, not complex systems. They're starting to understand, she noted, as the aliens hesitantly took seats around the table. Real solutions come from real conversations. Back in the hall, Parker laid out simple terms. Humans would return to galactic affairs, but things would be different. No more dismissal of primitive methods. No more replacing working systems with theoretical improvements. We don't want to rule, he explained. We want to help, but we'll do it our way, with practical solutions that actually work. The aliens, who had once scoffed at human simplicity, now listened intently as Parker explained basic concepts they had forgotten. Redundancy in critical systems, maintaining what works, and the importance of solutions that any species could understand and implement. Your civilization's advanced so far, he continued, that you forgot the foundations. Sometimes the simplest answer is the best answer. In the monitoring room, Admiral Wilson watched as the aliens began to relax, began to engage in actual conversation rather than formal protocols. They were remembering how humans had always conducted diplomacy, with honest words and practical goals. They're ready, he noted, ready to learn that progress isn't always about making things more complex. The forms were the first to officially agree to human terms. We understand now, they pulsed. Your strength wasn't in advancement, but in practicality. One by one, the species added their agreement. No quantum signatures or complex verification systems, just simple, clear acceptance of the new reality. As the meeting concluded, Parker stood to address the gathering one final time. Welcome, he said with a smile, to a galaxy where simple solutions are valued as much as advanced ones. The aliens left Earth that day with a new understanding. Humanity wasn't returning to save them. They were returning to teach them that sometimes the most advanced solution is the one that simply works. Phase 6 was complete. The galaxy was ready for a new era, one where human practicality would guide the way forward. 2 years after the Great Withdrawal, humanity had returned to the galactic stage. But this time, everything was different. The massive halls of the new Galactic Council on Earth showed this change clearly, mixing advanced technology with practical design, just as humans had always done. Commander Jack Miller walked through the new trading hub on Mars, watching aliens and humans working side by side. Where once stood complex quantum computing terminals, now simple screens displayed clear market prices. The trading volume had tripled since the change. Another successful integration, his assistant reported. The luminaries have adopted human-style maintenance schedules for their colonies. No critical failures in 3 months. The galaxy had changed fundamentally. Species that once competed to showcase their advanced technology now competed to find the most practical solutions. It was a revolution in thinking, sparked by humanity's withdrawal and return. In the education center, alien students learned alongside humans. Today's lesson was typically human, fixing a broken engine with basic tools. The aliens, who once would have replaced the entire system, now understood the value of repairs and maintenance. Sometimes, the human instructor explained, a wrench and some knowledge is better than a quantum manipulator. The forms had become enthusiastic converts to human methods. Their once complex energy distribution networks had been simplified, making them more reliable and easier to maintain. Power outages, once common, were now rare. Humanity taught us efficiency isn't about complexity. A form representative pulsed during a council meeting. It's about finding solutions that actually work. On the frontier worlds, where advanced technology had often failed, human methods were transforming lives. Simple mechanical pumps provided water. Basic greenhouses grew food. Communities thrived using technology they could understand and repair. The bright ones, once the proudest critics of human methods, had become their strongest advocates. Their ships now carried both advanced quantum drives and simple backup systems, a combination that had reduced accidents by 90%. In orbit around Jupiter, Linda Roberts, now Director of Galactic Integration, reviewed the latest reports. The economy was booming. Trade was flowing smoothly. Diplomatic incidents had dropped to historic lows. They finally understand, she said to her team. Progress isn't about making things more complex. It's about making things work better. The greatest change was in how species interacted. Gone were the days of complex diplomatic protocols and AI-mediated negotiations. Now representatives simply met, talked, and solved problems together. A human taught me, Representative Stone rumbled during a council session, that sharing a meal solves more problems than sharing algorithms. The galaxy had found a new balance. Advanced technology still played a vital role, but it was now tempered by human practicality. Systems were designed to be understood and repaired, not just admired for their complexity. In the shipyards of Mars, new vessels combined the best of both approaches. Quantum drives sat alongside mechanical backup systems. AI controllers worked with manual overrides. It was the perfect symbol of the new order. Advanced but practical. We're not just building ships, the yard supervisor explained to visiting aliens. We're building ships that work, ships that last, ships that can be fixed when they break. The final piece fell into place when the Galactic Academy opened its doors. Here, species from across the galaxy came to learn the human approach, not just to technology, but to problem-solving itself. Think Simple First was written in multiple languages above the entrance. Complex solutions are only better if they actually work better. Back in the council chamber, Commander Miller watched as representatives discussed a new trade agreement. No AI mediators, no quantum probability matrices, just intelligent beings talking and finding common ground. This, he thought, is what we were working toward all along. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Advanced technology was valuable, but not at the expense of functionality. Theoretical perfection meant nothing without practical application, and sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution. As he looked out at the combined achievements of human practicality and alien advancement, Miller smiled. The new order wasn't about humans ruling or aliens following. It was about finding the right balance between progress and practicality. The galaxy had finally learned the greatest lesson humanity had to teach. The best solution is the one that works.